All right, now we're recording. Don't want to
Oh
miss
well,
any of the good stuff.
yeah. Well, they put him on leukemia real fast, and then it went away, and then his immune system was just totally wrecked after that. So he ended up dying of a flu in the hospital.
Well,
And it's
that's
like,
usually the thing, right? Like with many types of cancer, it's like the treatment kills your immune system, and then you just die because you have no immune system.
yeah, but like, that's something that they don't even seem to consider in the treatment process. It's like, oh, let's put him in this hospital where people always get sick.
Yeah, people's risk assessment is so funny to me. I was just talking to somebody about sort of like family friends or whatever that are super nervous about COVID and masks and all this stuff. But they they're very overweight and they eat junk and they like when they have a health problem, like, oh, I'm overweight, I guess I'll get my stomach stapled around. They'll go in for surgeries that are like not even necessary. And like the odds of getting a staph infection or something at a hospital are like infinitely greater than any pandemic that has ever,
Yeah, than getting COVID at the beach.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to look at what sorts of things are acceptable to be preachy about. So you just mentioned how these people are super nervous about COVID and they're strict about wearing masks, but they eat a ton of fast food and all that kind of stuff. I have seen memes making fun of that phenomenon, and wherever I have seen them, there has been controversy around it because people have said, you're basically preaching to other people when they have a choice to live the life they want, and that you're shaming people, for eating a bunch of fast food. Like, that's a really cruel thing to do in our society, to shame people for eating unhealthy. That's really, and I'm not making any assumptions about people being like obese for reasons that have nothing to do with eating fast food. Like, the memes are explicitly talking about people that eat fast food, and that's like cruel and preachy. So there are clearly certain things that we all kind of know are true, but preaching about them are taboo. Don't do that. But then there are other things where it's like the gloves come off and it's socially acceptable to be preachy to the point of rude. It's sort
even
of like,
even if we can't establish that it's true.
yeah. I mean, you can see what people's true religion is by what they allow you to preach. So like voting, you can tell anybody, go vote, go vote, go vote. But if you tell but if you tell somebody, hey, eat healthy, go to the gym, it's like, whoa, easy, brother.
TK, you're salty. You're just salty right now because you tweeted today, hey, you can go vote for yourself anytime. The ballot for voting on your own creativity is open, or some, a typical TK-ism, like a cat poster. And you lost 15 Twitter followers over that. So apparently the word vote is very polarizing today, even if you're using it as a metaphor for self-empowerment.
Yeah, I think I offended people by saying vote without simultaneously criticizing or celebrating a specific politician. And so I think that was the most offensive thing I wrote. Vote for yourself. Who does God think he is?
I don't like monitor Twitter activity a ton. Like, I mean, I monitor my notification. I pop in there every day or whatever, but I don't monitor like follows and stuff, except when I have certain tweets, because I've noticed there are certain things that I'll do where I'll instantly gain or lose like 15 to 20 followers. And it's always funny. It's always in the Bitcoin world, and this is lessened since I think a lot of those people have gone. But anytime I would tweet anything remotely, like I would get all these new BTC followers because I would go on a podcast by some BTC guy to talk about education, not to talk about Bitcoin. And they'd be like, this guy's awesome. He's one of us. And I'd be talking a little bit about Bitcoin and proof of work and education and career. And I get all these new followers. And then the first tweet I have that's like remotely about like, cool, check out this new app that's, Twitch. It's like 20 followers gone. Like, oh, I see. Or like you go on Fox News, you get hundreds of new followers. And then the first time you tweet anything like libertarian-ish at all, you like lose 20 instantly.
That was like, when Craig, before Craig was banned or I don't know if he was actually banned. I don't know what happened to him on Twitter, but before he left Twitter, I was one of the few people he followed. And I remember when he followed me and I was thinking, okay, I got to stop tweeting about anarchy as much because he's going to get mad and unfollow me or block me or something like that. And I remember specifically, he called me out on a podcast because I kept saying college degrees don't matter. And I was like, oh crap, like I need to tone it down because he's going to get mad and either block me or bring out a wheelbarrow of degrees.
Degrees don't matter. until you hit the threshold of degree number 17.
Yeah. If you have 20, it's an incredible signal. But if you have one, it's.
Speaking of signals, I didn't know this I didn't even notice it was happening. It was controversial, but I've been posting some videos to Streamanity occasionally that are just non-numpty. I'm just kind of using it to experiment with some stuff because it's fun. And apparently I had a Bitcoin Cash t-shirt on that Derek had made. This was pre-BSV split when Bitcoin Cash first split. So today, I just have a regular BTC t-shirt on.
That's an old one.
This is an old one. This is a very old one. In fact, I lost it, but I had an Ethereum t-shirt as well. I think it ran out of gas or something. I don't have it anymore, but,
Getting down with them little blocks.
Yeah. A friend gave me these in 2013. And so, I love it. I wear it all the time, because it's a comfy t-shirt and it's fun and it's part of a fun history that I love.
Isaac, do you realize that every time you wear a shirt that's not BSV, a child is sold into sex slavery?
Well, look at Steve. He's advocating for rationality and reason.
Yep. Yeah,
I still love that shirt. I mean,
yeah.
I love it because it's only going to offend like one or two people at most, and but like it will deeply offend them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I after viewing this shirt, people will conclude I am actually mentally handicapped because I think I'm actually claiming the ridiculous thing that that is actually a circle, what you're looking at. Isaac, I remember that shirt though, because I used to have it and it is very comfortable. It's a very soft shirt, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it's a good shirt.
I would wear a shirt that said almost anything if it's comfortable. Right?
Yeah. And something about, I don't know what it is. Like, I'm not a cheap guy. I'm not afraid to, I don't like to go clothes shopping, so I'm not like into fashion, but I love getting free t-shirts. It's like this weird game. Like, I love finding ways to score free t-shirts, like at events or conferences or like companies that I subscribe to. Our company will have these SaaS subscriptions to various things like Carta. It's something you pay for monthly to manage your company's cap table. And I think they're a well-run company. So I just emailed them and said, hey, I love your product. Been using it for about a year. What can I do to get a t-shirt? And they sent me a t-shirt. Like, so if someone sends me a free t-shirt, I'll wear it. Like, if it's comfortable and it's not something that's like horribly offensive to me, like I won't wear a Che Guevara t-shirt, but like a product or a company. So yeah, that's, but apparently
send you a Litecoin shirt next week.
I would love to wear a Litecoin shirt. You know why? Because I made a lot of money on Litecoin.
Yeah, I did too.
Because way back in the day, I bought Bitcoin and then like I bought Litecoin, like maybe 6 months or whenever, a year after, like not long after. Because I was like, oh, what's this? It's like some version that's faster or something. I don't know. And I just bought some. And then when right when Charlie Lee sold, literally the minute I saw his tweet, I went and sold all of mine. I was like, oh my God, that is a sell signal if I've ever seen one. So I am not like an investor trader, but that's probably the most brilliant trade move I've ever made in my life.
That's how those coins get you, man, with the t-shirts.
Yep.
That's how BTC got so many people with those comfortable t-shirts.
Well, so I was actually, I've never invested in Ripple, but I remember Ripple was doing like this t-shirt giveaway. And so I just signed up and they sent me a t-shirt, and I remember I got the t-shirt and it was this really like cheap, like cardboardy cotton polyester thing. Oh. And it was so uncomfortable that I decided I would never buy a Ripple token. You
immediately knew Ripple was a shitcoin scam and you decided to file a lawsuit against them.
And you missed out on like $1 million right there.
No, that's details. Hey, Steve, their day is coming. Okay.
Yeah. 18 months.
Hey, speaking of lawsuits, man, can Dave Kleiman rest in peace? I mean, man.
Yeah, that comment today was tough, wasn't it?
What do you mean, TK? By the way, we've seen comments multiple times throughout the history of the Numpties that the rest of us don't let TK speak enough. This is only from really BSV cult people, like really, really BSV cult people. So we're making a point to give TK the floor as much as possible. TK, please explain in as much detail as you like.
Hey TK, you're as welcome as anyone else here in this group. And you're equal to anybody else.
We should, TK, you know how people will say like right now, ever since the like Black Lives Matter protests and stuff, people will say with all that's going on in the world, and that's like this euphemism. They'll be like, hey, how are you doing with all that's going on? Especially if you're talking to like a black person. We're going to do that and people are going to think it's about race, but it's really because you are the Craig Wright cheerleader and be like, TK, how have you been? Like, I just want to give you a chance to talk as much as you need to, just considering everything that's going on in the world.
Now that Craig's in jail, how do you?
Right. It's really about the court case.
Yeah, but look, with Dave, before this court case, before I started reading up on it and stuff, I had the most positive impression of him because all I heard was that he was one of Craig Wright's best friends. And I never had the impression that he was like the main guy on Bitcoin. I just had the impression that he was a person that held Craig Wright in self-esteem and high esteem, that he was a guy that helped him out in various ways. And almost everything I'm hearing from the BSV camp about Kleiman, it makes you think less of him. Like you think that he was just a dude that was completely drugged out all the time. And when he wasn't drugged out, he was drunk all the time. And occasionally when he wasn't drunk or drugged out, maybe he ran and got Craig Wright's coffee. And I'm wondering, man, like, do we have to do my man like that in order to establish that Craig is Satoshi? I hope y'all don't talk about me like that if I die first. Man, just don't say nothing. Man.
Well, they've continued to change the narrative because originally it was like, it was David. David was so involved. He was my best friend. He was this brilliant guy. And by the way, I've seen videos of Dave and he seems like a sharp guy, right? I've seen him on YouTube several times from back in the day. And now it's like, he's this druggie who wasn't contributing anything. He was just high all the time. And then he died in mysterious circumstances.
I always got the impression that he was like, I don't remember if this was from Nathaniel Popper's book or some articles I read long ago, but kind of a thrill seeker guy and had some frustration and issues and depression from his, accident and whatever. And like, I would not be surprised if he maybe, drank or whatever, like seemed like he had some ups and downs after all of that. Who wouldn't, being a very active, adventurous person and then being paralyzed from the waist down or whatever it was. But just like a really smart guy. And like the main thing was it felt like he and Craig were like tight, like they were boys, they were really tight, they had each other's back. And that like, even if Dave was an alcoholic or whatever, you would never expect that Craig would be like calling him out or saying that kind of stuff or whatever, that they'd be like, hey, this is my guy. And like, if anything, your close friends, you overemphasize the amount that they've helped and impacted you, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not TK when you pass, I'm not going to be like, well, I don't know. You guys have to keep me to this. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, well, you know what? This guy, he was always just a loser. And he was like living with dogs. And I called him up and I'm like, look, I got this thing Praxis. I'm building it. I've done the whole thing. It's all me. I'm willing to allow you to come along for the ride for a little bit. But you got to clean up your act. You know what I mean? Like, and he never really got it, to be honest. He never understood it.
The only book about my success story called Living with Dogs.
The only story I'll tell about TK is when we were all in North Carolina at the house, and I think TK had like some books delivered, and I was like, man, TK's like, he's like ordering books to the house. Like,
yeah, we were at a beach house for like 3 days.
This guy's like a sharp dude. He wants to really, and then I open up the box and it's like comic books or something like that.
Graphic novels.
He's like, they'll never let me live that. Was that it?
It was a copy of Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
You had it delivered to a house you were staying in for 3 days. That humongous book, instead of just waiting till you got back home.
I almost finished it, man, in 3 days, bro.
It's probably good though. It would have got confiscated by the TSA probably.
What's the strategy behind attacking Dave this way? Is this related to the court case somehow, or is this just another capricious turn in the history of Bitcoin?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, yeah, I just saw Calvin today tweet that damn Voxer messages coming in, auto playing. I think I saw Calvin just tweet that today. I don't know what happened besides that.
Yeah, that's my guess, that it's about the court case. My guess is that what they're trying to do, that maybe in their efforts to praise him, like how you would do if a close friend of yours dies, you talk very, high of him. Maybe they kind of gave Ira too much ground to stand on by speaking so highly of Kleiman, and set things that can be used to say, oh, see, this guy was a critical part of it. And so now they kind of feel like they got to go to the other extreme and make it look like, look, we're going to tell you all the different ways that this guy was unqualified. Okay. And I think it looks bad on Dave, but yeah, my guess is that the only reason there's an incentive to say that kind of stuff is for the court case.
I mean, I understand that scenario where you're not expecting this to come into play later. And so somebody dies, you're going to say all the nice things. You're going to focus and you're going to hype up the ways that they helped you. And then somebody takes that and says, oh, I see what's really going on here. You're really a fraud. And that person did all the work. And then later, after being accused of that, you're going to be like, you're going to be unvarnished. No, let me tell you, this guy was dysfunctional. He was an alcoholic. You're going to let all this other shit out that's going to come across really bad. And maybe it's even true. It doesn't matter if it is, but it's like, doesn't seem very classy. But just as a way to try to reset the frame, like, okay, I told you all the good, but now let me tell you all the bad things so that you don't get the wrong idea, you know?
Yeah, well,
yeah. I guess that claim that Craig is the one that did everything. I mean, that's a contradictory claim, right? On many occasions, I thought Craig over the years has been saying, well, he didn't really do the coding. He's not a very good coder. And it's over time, it's gotten more and more extreme to where it's like, oh yeah, Craig did everything by himself, which I'm not a fan of, but I guess probably has some connection to the court case.
I was the main part of it. That's what I remember him saying in that first interview. So I think it's like
Craig Wright, Peter McCormack, all will be made clear.
Maybe. God, I just don't expect court cases to make things more clear. I can't think of a time in my life where a court case, even if it had a clear ruling, was like, wow, now everything's clear as day. I mean, OJ, like whatever. It's like, I don't expect it to clear things up regardless, but changing who was involved too. Like for kind of out of the blue, it felt like, oh no, David Reese, he was this guy that was working with me. He was the other guy. And then I haven't heard that mentioned again. And they're like, oh no, it was my uncle. He's the one that edited the white paper for me. And somebody edited that thing for sure, because that's not Craig's typical writing style. He says he doesn't do a lot of coding. So who else was involved with coding? Yeah, I don't know. Stories.
There are many stories that can be told about how important the people who helped you were. And sometimes you can tell, 9 or 10 different versions of that. If I record something and Steve edits it for me, it can be, man, I would have never made it this far without Steve. Or it can be, yeah, I mean, dude helped me out with something. I mean, it ain't like I couldn't have done it without him. There's just so many stories you can tell about it. And depending on the context, depending on the game you playing, who you trying to satiate with your story, it can change.
Well, if you've got let's say you really have $5 to $10 billion at stake, and then you've got a guy who's dead and he's like a friend of yours, and you're trying to make sure that his stake in the company, which maybe he promised to you, maybe he didn't have a good relationship with his brother or something like that, but it's going to go to his brother unless you throw him under the bus. I mean, it'd be hard to know what you would do in a situation like that if there were actually that much money. Of course, we don't even know if there is. I mean, it could be a lawsuit over a fake treasure chest, which is still a high probability. But
yeah, now that I think about it, TK, you've been enjoying some success on the podcast circuit, and when I play the chronology, I think maybe the career shift for you was that series that we did on Patterson in Pursuit. Now that I didn't think about it before, but I'm going to take a lot of credit for that. And the editing was so heavy, and those 7 hours worth of conversations that you and I had.
TK was nothing when Steve found him.
Yeah.
He was actually drunk the whole time during those episodes too, and he was high.
So Isaac calls me the who'd you call me last week? The Rob Schneider of podcasts.
Oh yeah, you're like Rob Schneider or Christopher Walken, those guys that will just take any movie, any show, any role, no matter what it is or how low budget. Like they just want to work. TK will go on any podcast, anytime, anywhere. It's incredible. So TK, we're gonna give you the floor again. you tell us what you want to talk about and give us some additional topics. You were talking about some funny stuff that you've been seeing out there in the world, or interesting stuff.
Yeah, I got a few things I want to talk about, but first I want to see Adam back. If you watch this, if you secretly watch this, I want you to go ahead and accept that invitation to debate with Shatters, man. I want to see that debate. So I don't know if y'all saw this, but there was like a back and forth on Twitter with Adam Back and Shatters. Here, what we can do going forward, we can do like a TK's tweet of the week, and I can like grab a few tweets and like show them on the screen.
Yes, we'd be like, and now crypto Twitter snapshot with TK Coleman. TK, take it away. You can
Anybody
screen share,
watching
by
it?
the way. I let you screen share if you want to pull them up.
I'll just read them for now because I'm not like prepared. I don't have them like.
You have 700 tabs open.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just read. So this was one where my man Adam put up a post. I'm not gonna read the whole long thread because they just went back and forth for a long time. But Adam just wrote a post that said, "Lying is an intent to mislead. That includes, therefore, equivocation, lying by omission, and word games, subterfuge, and redefining words that slip past those taking claims at face value. Only the suspicious, paying critical attention, would catch. People know when they mislead." And then Shatters responded and says, "You mean like how Bitcoin can't scale?" And it was like, oh man.
Oh, snap.
Right. So him and Adam go back and forth. And after like several tweets back and forth, Shatters was like, "Hey, debate me because you know I'll expose your lies. In fact, I was going to speak at your event and the sponsors threatened to pull back if y'all let me speak. Prove me wrong." And basically Adam Back was like, "I'm not about to give you free marketing. We've already won. The market's already decided." So it looks like he just dismissed them. But I would love to see that debate. But here's the first topic I like to talk about based on one of Adam's responses to Shatters. It's this phrase, "the market has decided." I've heard so many people in BTC say this when debating people in BCH or BSV, "the market has decided." And I want to know what y'all think of this because it sounds to me like one of the things I love looking at are those videos on YouTube that never celebrate too early. And there are lots of MMA fights or boxing matches or basketball games where somebody seems like they're clearly in the lead and they just like, "Oh yeah." And then like in the last minute, they get knocked out, they get clocked, somebody scores a goal on them. And they end up going from looking like you got the bragging rights to you look like a complete idiot. And I feel like there are a lot of people that are going to end up looking like that because they rely on this, "the market has decided." But I want to know what y'all think about this. Has the market decided that BTC has won?
I'll just say this one thing that you already alluded to, but there's an economist that's very, very little known. He's kind of adjacent to the Austrian school, maybe sort of Austrian a little bit, but named Ludwig Lockman. And Lockman's whole thing was, and some of the Austrians have definitely picked up on this as well. Hey, all of you economists, all of your models, all of your theories, all of the various, whether it's Chicago school or neoclassical or whatever, you all miss one small little detail of reality, which is called time. And time in the structure of production, time in the discussion of equilibrium prices and deadweight losses and efficient markets. And not only the role of time, which I think he plus the Austrian school do a phenomenal job of incorporating, but what are we talking about in terms of duration? Like on what time scale? So I think the BTC people and the shitcoin people or whatever you want to call them, they all say the market has decided. They're like, look, right now, today's price, and then the past, right? It has been decided. That's their time scale. BSV people sometimes make a sort of efficient market hypothesis error in the future direction. And I think there's some of this in some of the rosier assumptions about, let's say, what Boost POW will do, or the assumptions about, hey guys, BSV just is better tech, and between legality and technical superiority, it will inevitably win in the future. And it's like, well, how long is that future, right? If it'll win in 1,000 years, is that relevant? If it'll win in 10 years and then lose again 10 years after that, is that relevant? Like, just this assumption that we can look at a snapshot. I think time is just the thing that's too easy to forget. Not really an answer, but.
Well, that's an interesting thought, right? Because on one end, I never thought about the perils of thinking about time in a sense that's too far away. I only thought about it in the sense of like, hey, just because you're winning right now don't mean you're going to be winning in 5 years. But you can also come back and say, all right, just because there's evidence that you're going to be winning in 100 years doesn't mean there's a reason for anybody to care.
Well, my boy Jack Lew, who I've chatted with several times and we've had him on here, who I really like and respect, he just tweeted the other day something about, if you try to win the narrative battle, you'll always lose unless you try to win the actual battle or something like that. And I said, on what time frame? You can win or prevent loss for a long time just by winning the narrative battle without actually winning a real battle. Maybe not indefinitely, but maybe you don't care about indefinitely. What do politicians do with Social Security? Everyone knows it's mathematically unsustainable, but you can make a career out of making it worse until you're dead. And you get your whole lifetime of benefit from a false narrative.
Yeah.
That's the whole, in the long run, we're all dead. I mean,
Right.
That idea is actually, even though I hate who said it. I mean, there's a point in there still.
Yeah, it's like
his
analyzing
economic consequences of the piece is actually a great piece of economics and political writing. But other than that, he's terrible.
It's like the equilibrium error, and people are trying to evaluate how a market might look at equilibrium and think that that's inevitable. That's a very foolish way of looking at things. I just had a conversation maybe a couple of months ago with Mark DeMazel, the BCH investor guy. We talked on his YouTube channel, and one of the things we were talking about was precious metals and gold. And I was saying at the time, I'm pretty bullish on precious metals given all the stuff that's going on right now. And he was saying that he's not gold in a long-term bear market. And so it's too risky for him to invest in it. And I guess he's shorting gold now, which is a risky play. But anyway, I was listening to some of his commentary, and I thought it was an interesting claim to say that gold is in a long-term bear market. Because if you look back on last 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, like you go back 30 years, and it's pretty much positive every year, but double digits. But I was listening to him, and he was saying, oh, well, if you look at the trend from the last 120 years, adjusted for inflation, then it's in a long-term bear market. And I'm thinking, well, that analysis is probably way too long-term. To talk about trends in a market over 100 years in my opinion, doesn't even make sense, because so many concrete things happen. You can't make a prediction based on. Hey man,
nation states. That's part of my hope, is that if you look on a long enough time span, they all crumble and collapse. So anarchists are always right.
Yeah, sure. That's a good example. But that's what I'm thinking too. If you get your time scale wrong, if it looks like for the next 20 years you might be in a bull market, obviously that would be a good investment if you're an investor, even if that 20-year bull run is nested within a 15,000-year bear run.
What's the time scale that's relevant to you? I think it's such an important, even when it comes to stuff like should you go into debt to buy a house, or should you be anti-debt and just rent and all that? And people that have all this advice, one thing that's almost never mentioned is, well, what time frame are you talking about? What's the relevant period of time? Because when I tend to think in chunks with my company and with my family, and that's very helpful to say, well, what are we looking at here? Should we buy this house? For what next chunk of time? Are we looking for our next 5-year decision or our next 2-year decision? Because those are going to be very, very different things given all the market uncertainties. So this gets back to the speed question. And Derek, you mentioned this with just seeing all the struggles BCH is going through. I kind of feel like in crypto, you don't have time to look on a really long time scale. BTC benefits from the slower play because they're not doing anything. So they want everything to be slow and long. But I think to compete as an alternative or a superior technology, to me, you have to move fast. We have to be on a shorter time frame for BSV. I don't think you should just write off the market has spoken entirely. That should be a challenge. Yes, the market is consistently day after day saying that BTC is worth 100 times more than BSV or whatever, 20 times more. that is something that should put pressure on you and make you say, we got to move fast. We don't have an infinite amount of time to just let it prove out. But it's also not, today is not the same as 5 years from now or 2 years from now. Those are both, I think, important. But what is the time frame that's relevant in crypto and Bitcoin?
I think the value of Bitcoin, like BTC, which is not really Bitcoin, but I think the value of BTC, a lot of people are confused, like, why is it still valuable? And I think it's because there is an expectation in some theoretical future of it being useful at some point in the future, people buying it, which is
I don't even think there's that.
No, there absolutely is. I've talked to several large investors recently.
Really?
Oh yeah, massive whales. I'm talking like 100K plus coins who don't even know the history of the scaling debate.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
But you think they're investing because they assume it will be easily usable in exchange?
I think that they do assume at some point it will be useful in payments. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because I've talked to a lot of people, many people who are very smart in other domains, whether venture capital types or really smart entrepreneurs who've made some money, who are like, oh yeah, I have a bunch of Bitcoin. I don't really do any of the other ones. Like, well, why do you have Bitcoin? I want it as a digital gold. I want it as a store of value. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like, what is the plan? Well, I just think it's great because it's secure and it's separate from the Fed, and I can just store value. And they're like, I don't care. Fees could be $1,000 because I'm never going to move it. I'm just storing my value in it. I haven't heard them express an expectation of future usability. They just
I think that's implied though. I mean, because if you can't store value and without being able to use that value at some point, right? I mean, otherwise it's not actually storing value. You're just
to somebody like that, you could store value in real estate. You could buy a private island for $1 million because you're confident that in 10 years it'll be worth more than that, and you'd rather have your money there than sitting in a checking account or a savings account where it's not keeping up with inflation. Even though the transaction cost of liquefying that island that you own is incredibly high, it still may be worth it for you. So I think they view it like that, like a commodity.
Yeah, I mean, there could be both. I mean, I just mean that from my own kind of experience has been that a lot of people seem to think at some point it will be useful, that the market has, and I see that from a lot of the core people too. Like there is like at some point in the future, even like Luke Dashier, right, the kind of nutty guy, thinks that at some point they're going to raise the block size, and he has a projection saying in 2048 it will be safe to raise the block size by 1 megabyte.
I thought he wanted to decrease the block size.
Well, he wants to decrease it temporarily. So, because if you decrease it temporarily, then it will be safe by 2033 to raise it by 1 megabyte. No, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. There's a presentation. I can maybe drop a link later or something like that. It's very funny, and he gives all these charts and graphs for like the exact plan. And so, yes, there is an expectation that at some point in some future, no matter. So the question is, like, I think that's why people tend to be confused about why the price is valuable, because it can be not useful now at all. As long as there's some expectation in the future, it will be useful to some extent, right? So I think the challenge for like BSV or other coins that are trying to compete is to demonstrate so much use earlier on fast that the expectation of some theoretical future where Bitcoin is useful, BTC is useful, is because to become increasingly kind of absurd.
Yeah, I think whether it's an explicit part of their belief system or an implicit part, it's unclear. But I do think if you were to have a extended discussion with people who are BTC maximalist, I think there is an implicit belief that at some point you're going to have second layer solutions. You know, that
what about just the normal people who are the ones making the price stay and go up, just buying it on Robinhood or putting large chunks into it because they want to diversify?
They listen to those people like those are their pastors and priests.
You think so? I don't think most of them that I follow don't know anything about Bitcoin Twitter.
I think there's an interesting parallel to philosophy here, where the argument that the market has decided is sort of like an argumentum ad populum. That people, like in philosophy, if an idea is popular, a lot of people think that means it's a good idea or the idea is true because they've heard a lot of people say it. I feel like there's a corollary with people saying that, well, because the price of BTC is higher, that must mean there's more value there or there's more justified. And I take the most radical approach, the opposite of that, which is to say that there is no connection between the popularity of the argument and the truthiness of the argument. There may be some way you can you can extract good ideas from popular ideas, but it's, if anything, if an idea is popular, it is not a good idea. If there's any strong correlation.
Maybe you could say, I like the no correlation, but you could say there's no correlation between popularity and truth, but popularity does bring an additional danger that may lure you away from the truth, because right, being unpopular is something you don't want to be. And so you want to be popular, which makes it you should be especially skeptical of popular ideas because they are easy.
Yes, and there's a pattern that happens in ideas that is also happening in the crypto market. The pattern is some very few original thinkers come up with some reasonable ideas, and they communicate it to people who aren't thinking. Maybe they're in the academy or whatever, and the ideas get distorted a little bit. They're made kind of silly, and then the silly interpretation of the good ideas is what becomes the orthodoxy, and then the orthodoxy lasts for a very long period of time, people arguing for the silly bastardization of good ideas. And I feel like that's the exact same thing that has happened in Bitcoin, where Bitcoin was a great, brilliant, world-changing invention that justifies massive speculation. And it was distorted by a bunch of academics and doofuses who took a good idea and made it terrible. And then this is a very hierarchical phenomena. You know, you had the doofuses ruin the good idea, and then over time, the BTC is now supporting this terrible philosophy that doesn't make any sense, and yet it has a lot of people supporting it in terms of raw numbers. I could give you 100 correlations of that same phenomena happening in the world of ideas.
And there's no prediction of how many more people are there, like Derek Swales that he's met, or some of the investors I've met, that are just like, yeah, let me buy 100K worth of BTC. Like, I don't know how long that can last and how long it can be divorced from utility. I feel like it can't be indefinite, but what does that mean? 2 years, 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to the world of ideas, it can last a freaking long time. You can have, I think in the long run,
often it's until a whole generation dies.
pretty much it dies, maybe even because of the bad ideas, if we're talking about ideas and nutrition and stuff. But yeah, that can last a very long time. And it doesn't change the fact that the original ideas might have been good, but the ideas, or the technology in this case that is being argued for, is absolutely terrible, like indefensibly bad. Like the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, indefensibly bad, an embarrassment to human reason. And yet this has recently changed, fortunately, but for like maybe 60 or 80 years, that was the dominant interpretation in physics. So it definitely take a long time.
There is a...
Say what?
I love your article on that, by the way, on your website. That's such a good article.
Oh, yeah, that's the best critique of the Copenhagen interpretation that I think I've come across. There is a relevant point to, or a relevant side to, the market has spoken rebuttal. And I think like there's something that we often forget, because there are far fewer now than there used to be, but people who said Bitcoin would never be anything and was not possible for it to be anything, and it will never be worth more than $1 or whatever. The ability to say 10-year track record and it's worth 12,000 or whatever, like the market has spoken on one thing. It is shown it is possible for millions of people to own this, for it to be worth a not insignificant amount of money, for it to be relevant enough to be talked about among financial people, whatever, for it to be a thing that exists in the world and survives. That means nothing about its future. But it is a relevant backward-looking argument to say, just like if people tell you you'll never get your startup working, hell yeah, I'm going to say, proof in the pudding, bitches. Here it is. You told me, you doubted me. It's here. Now, does that mean that it's going to continue to grow and take over the world? No, there's no guarantee of anything like that. But I think it is relevant to say things about the market relative to the past. But TK, what's the time slice you think is important? Oh, sorry, Steve, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's a great point. And the truth is to be found in thinking about what the market has proven in the abstract. So you're right, it has proven some things about cryptocurrency, but that might not necessarily port into proving something about BTC.
Yep, it's proven that this thing can exist for 10 years and have the things that it's had. But it hasn't proven anything beyond that, but it's proven that.
Well, there's another element that the market has proven that I think many people care about more than success. It's that although popularity doesn't minimize the probability that your beliefs are wrong, it does reduce the weight of ostracization. So I've given this example before with college degrees. Let's say you go to college and you end up becoming a loser after getting your college degree. And however you would define the word loser, let's just go with that definition. No one in your life is going to say, oh, you're a loser who hates your job and you're unhappy because you have a college degree. They're going to blame it on something else. They're going to say, well, maybe you need to do this extra thing, or maybe times are just really hard. Maybe you shouldn't give up yet. But no one's going to point to your college degree as the cause for your unhappiness. On the other hand, if you do this minority thing, like opt out of college, and you turn out to be unhappy with your job, the first thing that people are going to do is they're going to point to the lack of a college degree, and they're going to say, that's the reason why you failed. They're not even going to consider the other possibilities. You should have went to college. And so I think most people appear to be afraid of failure, but I don't think that's what they're really afraid of. What they're afraid of is failing and being alone. People don't mind failure as much as long as they can fail as part of a crowd. And I think what the market has proven with BTC is that if you fail this way, you will at least be part of a massive crowd, and the chances that you can duck away and hide and not
it won't be your fault. It won't be your fault.
It won't be your fault.
We all
That's a
got
good point.
crushed, you know.
You had good reasons.
A lot of smart people. It was out of our hands. The economy. Yeah.
Absolutely. But BSV, you should have known better, right? Like, they're going to love that. BSV fails, you know, you got no excuse. Why? Because we've been telling y'all 10 times a day that Craig Wright's a fraud, even though we pretend to not care about him. We've been giving y'all updates every 5 minutes about why you shouldn't trust him, right? So, you know, the market has proven that this is the socially safe path to go. And I think that's what people really care about.
We should make that a marketing slogan for Bitcoin, BTC, and set up some Twitter accounts and stuff, pretending to be BTC promoters that are like, Bitcoin, just do the normal thing. And then like completely eviscerate the whole, like, we're a radical rebellion against the financial status quo, and be like, follow the crowd, buy Bitcoin. Don't think, just buy. And like, as if it's a promotional thing, just to attract the non-thinking.
You get banned from Twitter, though. Did you guys see that Titiana McGrath's account was taken down?
I think wasn't it temporarily, or is it down now again?
I don't know. I didn't.
Like
I saw it when it happened. Hopefully, the Babylon Bee apparently was taken down as well. But I know they were.
They got
reinstated.
back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did Tatiana go?
I don't, because she was making fun of powerful people. That's my suspicion.
That's amazing, because Twitter allows the proliferation of a whole lot of creepy stuff from blue checkmark accounts.
Yeah, really like sick stuff. And they allow like terrorists on the account and all sorts of other stuff. And then, you know, someone makes a joke and you're banned. Yeah. Well, so speaking of censorship, actually, I'm thinking of, someone said the other day on Twitch that Streamanity and Twitch and all these sites are going to censor you in the future, and you know, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And that's just like, anyone who thinks otherwise is crazy. I thought that was kind of an interesting point. And I want to know what you guys think about the response. My own thought on it is like, that's probably true that like something like Streamanity will have to like, or we'll delete some videos in the future or something like that. I mean, you know, but removing the payment processor and the power of the payment processing and advertising as the revenue stream, removing those two elements dramatically reduces the incentive to censor, because a lot of censorship orders come down from third parties who are doing business with you and who don't want to be part of that. So like with YouTube, for example, one of the reasons you want to censor is because you have companies who don't want to advertise on those videos, right? Or you have, with other companies, you have a bank that says, we don't want to give you a loan, or we don't want to process your payments if you're allowing this type of content. But if you're making money off of peer-to-peer payments, sure, you could still censor. There might be a benefit to censor. There might even be a place where you say, I don't want this type of content on my platform, but the incentive to do it, the pressure from a third party is dramatically decreased, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It used to be simple, like YouTube's policies before the woke crusaders ruined everything, were pretty dang independent and neutral. And like in the early days of YouTube, I don't think people really, I guess maybe before Google bought them, people didn't really, it wasn't a political thing. You didn't really worry that your content was going to be taken down or shafted by the algorithms. And I think I could see something like Streamanity carve out that old successful policy again, where if they just say off the bat that they're going to be neutral and they don't have to worry about the pressure from payment processors, I think that definitely could allow for more censorship resistance of a video platform.
I'm going to take this in the other direction. One interesting thing that I've heard this comedian Dave Smith say before, and he's like a anarchist comedian guy, really interesting guy. I follow him on Twitter. He said like a truly free society isn't one where we don't tell you what to do. No, it's one where like a libertarian society, you can't kill anyone or steal from anyone. Okay, we tell you those things. And also, I can tell you what to do on my own property as much as I want to, right? I can make as many rules as I want to. And so you could look at these things in some ways, and the guys on Twitch are kind of funny with this, right? They'll go and be like, oh, you're preemptively banned. You're never coming on Twitch. It's my platform. I'll do what I want to with it. And there's something in there that I love, because the thing that feels insidious and dangerous about this sort of deplatforming as we have it today is that all of these entities have set themselves up as we are the platform, and they have these massive network effects where like you basically have to be on there if you want to talk to anybody. And then to be getting sort of deplatformed when they claim they will never do that to you to make you feel safe and everybody's on there and you have to be on there. And then they kind of do it in this arbitrary way. I think the cool thing with BSV-based apps, for example, are a couple things. One, if things are actually going onto the blockchain, and I know Streamanity's videos are not going onto the blockchain itself, maybe in the future they will, I don't know. But if you, let's say, get banned from Twitch, you still have all of your content, right? You can access that. Now, whatever, maybe Craig will call the miners and get them to reorganize the blocks or something and remove your, but
well, any company could also grab that content, which is cool.
Right, exactly. And so you get this competition, you get to say, look, here's the way that we discriminate. We don't let any content that is not about BSV be on here, and we'll kick you off if you talk about anything else. And then you'll be like, well, they kicked me off for that. And some other guy will say, oh, well, we have a different sort of niche. We take anything except for pornography. And some other one will be like, oh, we do all pornography or whatever, right? And this will allow a true pluralism. Not everything is all in one giant bucket, and then we have to decide when to make cuts. But like, no, pluralism is like some things are, you don't have restaurants that try to serve everything at once, right? They niche down. They niche down into, somebody said that I was pronouncing niche in a way that bothered them. I don't know which way, but so there's that aspect that I think is really interesting. And I think a lot of these guys will say, look, this is my private company, but here's the insight. Sorry, I took a long time to get to this, that I just realized, and Jack Liu kind of helped me see this. We had a video discussion. It was actually yesterday about, bootstrapping. BSV changes the network effect business model dramatically in ways that I hadn't appreciated until he sort of started talking about it. The typical thinking in a digital consumer-facing product, and every investor will tell you this, and trust me, because I have a product that's digital consumer-facing and I'm raising money from venture capitalists. It's all about network effects.
As a ...
Hey, look. I am an authority. No, I'm not an authority in any way, but I can tell you this is what they will say from my experience asking them. Dang it, TK, you caught me. You caught me.
What the authorities will say is
the most.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, guys, I'm trying to put bread on the table, so I have skin in the game. Okay.
You're feeding your children.
Yeah. So they'll tell you need to build a network effect business where every additional user makes the platform more valuable for every other user and makes the cost of exiting way, way higher, right? Which is exactly what Facebook and Twitter and YouTube is, which is why they have a lot of room to get LinkedIn. Is there anybody that says, I love LinkedIn. I love everything about the interface and it's really fun and usable. Like everyone hates it, but its network effect is so powerful because they own all your data. They have the whole network and it's all right there. And an upstart coming, it's very, very hard. They got to convince you to abandon LinkedIn and come to where there's no network. we were talking about BSV apps, and he's like, if all the stuff is on chain, the data, and all the sign-ins and whatever, they're all done through a wallet, you come on RelayX and you're like, oh, I want to jump on Twetch. And you're on Twetch and you're like, you know what? I don't like Twetch anymore. And then you're going to go on your app store, BSV wallet app store, and be like, you know, Twetch 2.0. Oh, who invented this? Boom. Import my entire Twetch history. Here's my whatever. It's all there. And the seamlessness and the business model from the venture, like if you're going to raise venture capital for Twetch to go get a bunch of users, VCs are going to say, I don't want you to do that, because the only way you get users is by getting them to get a BSV wallet, which is not a Twetch product. And then they're going to get on that wallet. And now it's going to be super easy for them to be a customer of Powping or to be a customer of Twetch 2.0. And so user acquisition money is going to subsidize your competitors because you're bringing them onto a network. The biggest hurdle is getting them on BSV in the first place. And then they can switch. The switching cost is really low. There are still network effects within those apps, but the switching cost is way lower. It's totally different. And the real network is Bitcoin as a whole. That's the network that has the network effect. And so there's something interesting about, you have one giant network effect called Bitcoin. And then the individual apps, they don't need to be everything to everyone. They can be really discriminatory. They can remove you if you don't meet their guidelines. But you and your data, as long as you're all on the big network, you still get the network effects. And then you get to like pick the way in which it's almost like an RSS feed, right? You get the whole benefit of the network effect of the internet, but you get to personalize the way that it feeds to you. And I think there's something interesting there that's a little different than typical tech platforms.
Yeah, I like that point a lot. I don't disagree. I don't think we're saying the same thing. I mean, I just mean like when you don't have banks and large advertisers who can just come in and they're your business model.
Oh, I totally agree with you, Derek. I was saying go the opposite direction just to be sort of cheeky and saying it's other third parties won't be able to deplatform you nearly as easily. But the apps themselves may actually feel free to be more discriminatory in some ways.
Well, in a private property society, I mean, you know, the freedom to disassociate is awesome, right? I mean, that's tremendously important. So, like, we should want more of that.
Yeah, the assumption there, the big assumption is the data being on chain. That's the idea that we all share that public database, and with video in particular. You know, it can be done. I think the costs are just going to be very, very high. But
Luke
if we ever
Dash Jr. told me that in the year 3042, video will be able to go on chain.
Yeah, right. Yeah, to put a video on the BTC chain would be like 50 years worth of blocks to put like a GIF on or something.
Hey, shouldn't that, by the way, like if you're a little blocker, shouldn't you be like isn't his logic kind of consistent? You know, like if you buy the arguments that are set forth on behalf of why blocks should be small, isn't Luke's version of that argument actually the reasonable one?
Yeah, and I like the term little blocker. I feel like that's more derogatory than small blocker, so I'm going to start using that.
It's cute. Cute
very little blocks. Yeah, well, I mean, within
Adorable.
Luke's presentation makes a lot of sense within that framework. When you listen to it, like if you don't have any other context and you're not thinking outside of it, within the framework that he's operating under, it makes some sense. I would push back on the idea that that there's he goes a little too far in the, I think, central planning. Like, here's my exact chart predicting the exact moment in 2044, which is going to be technically safe to raise the blocks. That's crazy. But I think the general idea within his framework makes sense. I just think the framework itself is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think even the central planniness of that fits within the framework pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, your point about, or Jack's point about the different market dynamics is really fascinating here, and it makes me think that the successful business models in the BSV economy are going to be transaction and interface based. So if your business model is serving up data, and when you serve it up or you have somebody else add data to the blockchain, you take a tiny little transaction fee. That's really fascinating. That's a really neat way to think. Like, what is the BSV entrepreneur going to be doing to try to maximize their profit? What's going to try to get you to interact with, put more information on the blockchain as much as possible. It's really
and the whole data is the new oil concept, and this BSV concept of cool. The data comes from you. You're the one that originates it with your activity. You should be able to own it and control it. And then what does that make the entrepreneur's role? It's not to extract your data and hold it and then sell it to the highest bidder. It's to come to you and say, hey, look at this cool way I can serve your data up to you. Look at this cool way I can allow you to create the data. And then I can demonstrate the data. Like, hey, come to me and say, I want to buy a thing that displays everything I've ever done with X, Y, and Z in this really cool designed way. Okay, great. You pay me $50 or you pay me X per byte of information. And it's like, I'm the one who comes in and says, look, you have all this amazing data. I want to serve it up to you in a really cool, unique way. And I'm going to take a tiny cut every time I do that. There's something different there that's cool.
Well, yeah, when
really
network
cool.
effect is like the pure business model, like there's less of an incentive. Like you said, like LinkedIn can be utterly shitty and still manage to cling on and survive somehow for a lot longer than I would expect it to survive. But when you don't own the data as a company, and any other company can essentially fork your service and display it better than you, then the cost of switching is so much lower, right? And so, keeping a shitty product alive like that is going to be much harder, I think.
This also seems like a beautiful progression of the internet in general, where the internet brought forth the most amount of information in history accessible to anybody at their fingertips. It's amazing, but the problem is there's too much. So try to imagine how much awesome content is online that you would pay some amount to consume. I mean, I can't even think about it. I would pay, half of my net worth to try to consume all of the valuable content that I could, or even I'd probably pay more than that because it would be like totally life-changing if you could find it. The problem is you can't freaking find it. So maybe that's the next generation of the internet entrepreneur, is really just having access to the one database and then having a way to extract the relevant information to people, and to be able to incentivize people to put high quality information back onto the blockchain because they could monetize it more easily.
I saw somebody. Oh, go ahead.
Let TK talk, Isaac.
Yep, I promised I was going to let him talk. I'm getting all excited.
To use Jack's analogy of inside the BSV, I feel like I'm Barkley. What does he always say? You never let me talk. Let me say so. Kobe Bryant. No, so shoot. What was I gonna say, man?
This is why we don't let you talk, because you blow your opportunity on a joke.
You went up, you raised your hand and said, I am walking up to this plate and I have a home run and then you're like, dang, I don't have the bat.
and that's my success tip for the day. You got to hit the buzzer before you know the answer. Hey, wait, Steve, what was the last thing you just said, man?
So the internet paradigm is mining all that overwhelming amount of
Yes. Okay. No, I was just gonna say, I think one of the things that is like so underestimated is the demand for good quality content curation. I mean, right now we just take for granted that, what we get on a search engine as the result is, the best available stuff, or like their true top 10, but according to what metric? And I think this is the real problem with social media censorship. It's not that they don't have the right to do what they want to do with their private property. It's that we have no idea how to get to the best information. There are things I used to search for on YouTube 3 years ago that I could easily find. And now, I can spend hours looking for that information and it's just gone.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like how do we find the stuff that we really want to see or that we really want to research? I mean, that to me is the most exciting possibility.
Yeah, so it's almost like, you've got this massive network effect of this big network where everybody's data is on there and all the data, is owned by you. And then the businesses they're basically selling you a user experience or a user interface. And I think that's so cool because these, as Derek said, these network effect businesses of the past, like LinkedIn has probably the worst UI imaginable. It's so painful to use it. And everybody says that, even the super users, because you're there for the freaking network effect, because you need it. You can't find people's contact information anywhere but LinkedIn, right? It's like what people say about college. Sitting in a college classroom is a pretty shitty experience in most cases, but like, oh, I need the degree or whatever, right? The idea that The data part is all taken care of. That's everywhere. And you can take it with you anywhere. It's portable. The network effect is the whole network. Now, if you want me to use your service, you have to have the best user interface. You got to have the best user experience. You got to serve it up to me in a fun new way. I saw, I think it was Elon Moist. I saw one of the Twitch guys recently. Somebody was shitting on Twitch. Oh, it's just like glorified Twitter with whatever. And he said something like, yeah, because remember how easy and fun it was to add data to the blockchain and view it before Twitch. And I thought that's really the thing. That's what Twitch is. That's just so brilliant. Not like this is a big insight that I have or anything, but that it's not Twitter with payments. I mean, that's part of it. It is that, and that's fun, earning a few cents. But it's, okay, you want to write stuff. You want to write your data to the blockchain so that it's on a distributed ledger and it's not on one company's server and whatever. It's portable. And you want to be able to read your data and other people's data that's on the blockchain in a user-friendly way. You guys ever try to read transactions with op returns like directly from a block explorer or something? It's just unreadable, right? It's worse than the court documents from Court Listener. And so it's like, this is what it is. And all we're doing is giving you an interface to add and view that data to the blockchain. And we're choosing to start with one that you already know and like. You already know and like Twitter. Twitter has a good UI. Twitter's user experience is pretty dang good. And it's very simple. So we're going to use that. And then we're going to, because it's on blockchain, you do have to pay, and it does have all these other incentives, and it is a fun social network, and it is kind of like Twitter. But what it really is our first version of showing you what's possible with selling you a UI to enter and exit the blockchain.
Go ahead, Derek.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that there's the model that's done by having this network sort of separate from the business too is, like Isaac said, with niching down, it does allow you to exist as a very small network within a network, because like we're, on YouTube, to make any money on YouTube, you've got to have millions and millions and millions of views, right? But we are on Streamanity and we did, 100 sales, and that's like $200. That's actually like, if we're doing 5,000 sales, it's a nice little amount of money, right? Like, but that's not a huge audience. That's actually a very small audience compared to the kind of audience that you would need on YouTube to make that same amount of money. So, it allows you to have these very small groups and then get profitable very quickly without having without incentivizing the mega business that has everything on it, right? And has to have everything on it because that's the only way you can make any money.
Imagine Apple's App Store, but it could be used on any phone, not just Apple, and they only took a 1% cut instead of a 30% cut, and it didn't have to have all the approvals ahead of time.
Well, now you sound like DHH or whatever, that guy who was on
oh God,
the other day. That guy's the worst.
Another crazy thing about comparing YouTube's monetization to Streamanity is, I don't know the exact number, but with YouTube, before you can even start playing the game of participating in ad revenue, don't you got to have something like 10,000 subscribers and a certain?
Yeah, they make you
1,000 subs and 10,000 video views, I think.
Yeah. So, and what's crazy about that is you grow, and then you get to a certain point where you've actually got to create the video experience worse for your audience in order to make money by serving them shitty ads, right? Because no one ever wants to see that crap. Like I have, for my kid right now, sometimes we show him some YouTube videos when he's getting really fussy. He likes to watch this show called Baby Einstein.
Oh yeah.
It's the most annoying thing, because you'll be trying to sleep, right? You're trying to sleep and he's like screaming and you're playing Baby Einstein. And there's like 5 ads in between that last like 10 minutes, and you've got to wake back up and turn them off, right? It's like it's these little things that make the whole experience way
Derek,
worse.
I might still have some of those on VHS if you prefer that instead.
Well, no, because I'm just thinking about it now. Like, in order to make money, you've got to actually do something your customers don't want.
Well, yeah. I even like the opportunity to just get paid as you grow, right? Instead of saying, I got to get 1,000 first, got to get 10,000 views first. Imagine if by the time you even get there, you've made so much money from having 10,000 views and 1,000 followers.
Well, yeah, do you even need 10,000 views? Like, is it even worth reaching that many people? Or is it just worth?
We numpties have been doing this for about a year now, which blows me away. And we have like 15 videos or something. And we were posting them on YouTube before we stopped YouTube altogether because it just didn't do any extra good. We had like 35,000 views. So like almost 4 times what you need to monetize. But since it was on my channel, which I'd never done a single thing on before this, it only had like 750 followers. So we couldn't monetize even if we wanted to. And it would probably take another 6 months or a year of consistent videos to get up to 1,000 followers to even monetize. So you're talking like 2 years. The first video we put on Streamanity exclusively was like $200 or something.
The prices are absolutely bizarre. When if the problem with the internet right now is pricing of information, it makes the existing system look totally ridiculous. That somebody who's producing high quality niche content, let's say about the philosophy of mathematics or something, has to, if they want to try to make money through the normal YouTube system, how the hell are you supposed to get those 10,000, or 100,000 people to view your very esoteric, sort of low production value, but high quality intellectual content out there, when it's the same mechanism as the person that's putting cat videos out there, like normal mainstream cultural commentary? The idea, and so what I had to do is use Patreon. So I which has worked. I found a set of people who are enthusiastic enough about my work to go out there to this separate website, put in their credit card information, which can be a hassle, and that's a whole separate system. And I suppose that works, but the idea of just right out of the gate saying, this is a different, I'm not trying to reach a mass audience, is a massive opportunity, and the prices are so wonky right now online. I mean, I think the Numpty Show is a great example of this. We had a little exchange on Twitch, and I was really trying to wrap my head around just how bad information is priced online, because I think the something like the average revenue from a YouTube view is something like a half a cent, give or take. That's just with ad revenue. That's not if you're sponsored, if you have a podcast or something, but like a half a cent. Okay. That means you got to make, I don't know, you get a video with 1 million views, and that's something like $5,000. It's not easy to make a video with 1 million views. You get 100,000 views on the content you're producing. That's a successful video, and it's $500. And that's not really that much money. That's going to be really hard to make any kind of living on. And yet here we are producing this show with no production value. It's super niche. It's not like we planned this very much, and yet people are actually paying $2 for a view. That's mind blowing. That's
if we ever get Calvin Ayre to join us, we're charging $100 for that episode.
Yeah, I mean you're talking orders of magnitude difference for this type of wonky like one-off niche show. And I'm thinking realistically, we're thinking that the podcast paradigm, the information production paradigm is all screwed up, because does the podcast you listen to regularly generate, let's say, $1 worth of value for you? Somebody that listens to the Joe Rogan show and he brings on all of these people, these interesting people, would they pay $1 to hear that content for, it's a 2-hour conversation? Realistically, when they're thinking, okay, $1 versus listening to this amazing podcast, it's a no-brainer. It's $1.
Well, it's Amazon Prime Video versus Netflix, right? Like, I don't know. I can't tell you how many times I'll buy a movie for $2 for my kids to watch on Amazon. I don't keep track, and at the end of the month, I'm like, oh my God, how did I spend so much money on these Amazon movies? Like $1 or $2 at a time. Where Netflix, it's like, okay, I get to pay one monthly fee, and I like things about that, and then I get to not worry about paying per use. But the selection is a lot tighter, and there's a lot of times where I'm like, there's nothing I want to watch on here. There are months that go by where I'm like, why am I still paying for Netflix? And then like, oh, there'll be one thing that and The Last Dance comes on Netflix. Okay, I'm glad I have Netflix, right? But like, I think being able to do that down to a micro scale is, because Amazon has a minimum fee. Like you don't buy videos for less than like $2.99 or $1.99. You couldn't, and some of those people would be happy to have their video listed instead of for free on Prime, or instead of for $3 for a normal buy it, to be like, this is 10 cents. Like it just opens up so much more of the market for price discovery.
Well, the thing about these platforms too, like Netflix or Patreon, like someone has to join and become your member in order to give you value. Whereas you don't need that. You don't even need someone to necessarily be a subscriber to your channel in order to make money now.
But you do need to get them onto BSV, which is
that's the big problem.
Massive. I mean, Steve would flip the switch right now and go all Streamanity if it was as easy as just entering your PayPal to set up a wallet and buy the videos.
Actually, let's stick with that for a second. I get if we're talking about another influencer who would be overwhelmed by BSV, but Steve, you already have that. Like, will it be easy for you to upload your videos to Streamanity? So is the real problem you don't feel like your audience would follow you?
Yeah.
How would they pay you? How many Patreon supporters do you have?
An undisclosed amount.
Okay, but I'm guessing I'm guessing
got more money than your entire.
I'm guessing let's say what's the percentage of your Patreon supporters that you would estimate currently have a BSV wallet?
Hey, I'm a supporter.
Not many. Okay,
I think I used to be, but my credit card expired and I never renewed it because I don't like.
Well, that's another problem with the model, right? Like you just forget about it.
Yeah, I did used to be, but I'm not anymore. So sorry about that, Steve. I guess.
I know you didn't like that article I wrote about circles, and you're like, I can't support
you. Wore a T-shirt that offended me.
Yeah, but I would say that would just be the biggest problem. I suggested to Jack he make a option for producers of content to just pay 50 cents or something to Streamanity to have them upload your videos for you. You post in the link to your YouTube videos, they download it, and then they re-upload it for you. Because I'm thinking, I don't know what the correct cost of that should be, but if you do this for 50 cents or $1 and you're charging 50 cents for a video, it's like you make that money up with a couple people watching your video. But for me, it would definitely be onboarding. The biggest problem would be onboarding people to BSV in the first place. By far.
Great, I saw your video on Streamanity, and then after 2 minutes, it said you need to pay. I don't know what is this. I went and did all this work and downloaded Money Button, and now I don't know how do I get money on here. There's nowhere to buy this BSV stuff. Like,
what would a solution look like?
What
would a solution look like?
Well, okay. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I don't have a lot of good ideas, but I have a couple sort of like
buybsv.ca.gov.
I have a couple of hacky short-term ideas. So one is, hey, I want you to support me on Streamanity. It's all done on BSV. Go get your BSV starter kit. And your BSV starter kit is like.
Didn't I give you that idea about the BSV
no,
starter kit?
You and I talked about this. I don't know if I thought it originated with me, but it might have originated with
Was
me.
it a beach vision that you had?
No, I don't know if it originated with you or me, but we've talked about it a couple times, like maybe even a couple years ago or a year ago. But again, recently, where you put together.
I was on drugs during the conversation.
Let's say it like
I was going to say, be careful, Derek.
No, maybe it's like a course or a booklet, and it's like the Getting Started on BSV booklet, and it's $20, and you pay for the booklet. And we send it to you, and it's a PDF or whatever it is, doesn't matter. And in it, it comes with a 12-word seed phrase. And it says, great, go to moneybutton.com, enter this phrase, and boom, you have a wallet with $10 in it. And so we're not selling, we don't have to be AML KYC because we are not an exchange who is we're selling you a product. And that product comes with a gift. It's a free gift. It's a wallet that we set up on our own time, and it's a giveaway. And it's got a seed phrase that you can recover, and we preloaded it with $10. And so we're making money. We're making, you buy the course for $50. We're giving you a wallet with $10. Now you have a wallet, and if it's RelayX, even better because it's got the app store in there, and you can be like, boom, go to Twitch, boom, go to wherever. And now you've got it. Now, of course, when you run out of that $10, if you're a net giver, reloading it can be a pain. But now if you're already hooked, you might already be in that community. Hey, how do I get more on this thing? There are a few websites like BuyBSV, and maybe by that time you're hooked enough. Maybe $10 or $20 is enough to get you hooked on those apps, and plus what you earn to make it worth going and uploading your ID and doing all this stuff on some chintzy website to buy more BSV. But I think something like that potentially, or just like the product itself, putting the wallet in the app store. Hey, this is the RelayX wallet. This is the gateway to all apps on BSV. And you have to buy it in the app store, and it's a $20 app, but it comes with $10 of BSV preloaded. And so now you've bought the app, and you've bought access to the apps, to all the BSV apps, and you bought the wallet and access. I think something like that could potentially work.
I think earning BSV, if you have the customer have a way to earn BSV on the platform easily, I think that's kind of one of the keys because.
But you can't. But as a creator, you know this. 98%, 99% of YouTubers are consumers, not creators. Same with Reddit. Same with whatever.
I know. I'm just thinking like when I'm on Twitch, for example, like I've never had to add money to Twitch. You know, like it just like after you just start, you have a little bit of money in there, and then you basically never run out. You kind of break even at least.
But somebody does, right? Like it's because there are other people who are consuming more than they're producing, right? And like with Streamanity, if it's like, hey, get on and upload videos and charge money for them and wait till somebody pays you, then you can pay me to watch my videos. That's your audience.
Yeah, obviously that's not gonna,
That's my mass onboarding idea. Charge $20 for the wallet in the App Store, and it comes with a preloaded $10 on it.
Yeah, I think regulations just are the killer here because I remember
forget them.
Yeah, right.
I mean it.
You're supposed to be compliant.
Yeah. I mean,
and
if you
do it until somebody said stop, and then say, "Oh, sorry, we were."
Yeah, but I mean that was tried in BTC in the early days, and people wound up going to jail for.
Yeah, Charlie Shrem went to jail for.
But that was different. That was different. He was directly saying, "You're buying BTC. You're buying BTC from me. You give me your credit card, I give you BTC." No, we're selling a product, and the product comes with a gift. It's a 12-word seed phrase.
I just feel like
I like the idea, but it sounds like the guy who tried to pay his employees at the face value of silver and instead of the actual metal value.
People give away wallets and stuff all the time at conferences. What do you do at a conference? You pay the admission fee to the conference, and at the conference they might give you a paper wallet with $5 in it.
And then you get slapped with a money laundering.
Then you got to explain the story to the judge, and
because if you're legitimately delivering a good, you're legitimately selling a BSV wallet that has apps with it, and your wallet comes It's like PayPal did this. You get on PayPal and you automatically have $10 on there for free. They're not selling you USD. They're selling you PayPal and giving you a gift.
Yeah. I mean, I still think like, even if you get a little bit, like, I personally doubt like how many people who were given like free wallets or who got wallets from, who got their first, like whatever, 8 cents from a faucet, like are necessarily actively using Bitcoin. I mean, I introduced a lot of people to it that way. But that's
because you're dropping it from a helicopter. You're just giving them money for no reason. In this case, you're saying, you are already my follower. You already want my content. Here's how you get it now. Go download this. It'll cost you $20. And now you have the ability to purchase my content.
Yeah, I mean, you got to but then it's like, I like the idea because I think I came up with it while I was high and drunk and stuff like that. But you
back in the 90s.
Yeah, back in the 90s. You've got to tell your customer, like, go read a guide on how to use this new thing in order to pay me money. I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Or just like, it's like a gift. You can buy it with a gift card. You know, you can only buy, it's like Chuck E. Cheese business model. Hey,
so I think Steve's right about the regulations are just really stifling. Like the fact that I can't just very easily just put a credit card in.
There's always a way around it. TK, you get the floor as long as you want.
2 things. First, all of this is easy. We just need 18 months to figure it out. Secondly,
Satoshi's disciple wrote a tweet that says, has enterprise adoption become the in 18 months for BSV? So I'm going to give a shout out to Josh Hensley, no relationship to Sherman Hemsley. Josh wrote an article for CoinGeek, and he was talking about.
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great article.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tokens on Bitcoin SV in 18 months. And really quickly, I'm going to give you the floor, Derek, but really quickly, I wrote about how BSV has been all talk, no delivery thus far with token solutions. And interestingly enough, Calvin, who has invested in like at least a couple of these, replied, I agree with this, as I have also been upset with how slow this has been going. However, I also do know what is coming and it's going to be good. We'll see about that part. But
well, he always says that.
Calvin.
All right, so here's what I'm going to ask you guys about. So I want to hear your general thoughts about Josh's argument, but going back to the narrative discussion, is this one of those areas where Ethereum is dominating the narrative right now with all this DeFi buzz? Because you can say it's scammy, you can say it's stupid, but as much talk as much as there is talk about BSV, the MetaNet, Ethereum has the whole crypto world buying into the world, the world computer narrative, and all the people that are like the developers that are entrepreneurial, that's where they're going. They're not even thinking about BSV. So what do you think about Josh's article? What does BSV need to do in order to combat the Ethereum narrative instead of just sitting back and whining about, oh, it's scammy?
Well, I think Jack Lew, we keep bringing up Jack Lew. He's like the fifth numpty right now, but I liked his tweet the other day, or actually I think it was today, where he said that they've saved a lot of time and money by not filing patents before releasing new features and just releasing stuff. And I think there's something there where the tokenization thing in particular, I think, so I had tweeted a couple days before Josh's article about this tokenization problem, and Josh responded, see guys, this is what I've been telling you. And the conversation that the direction it took was about the fact that some of these solutions are billing themselves as like government friendly and regulatory compliant. And I think that's a big hurdle that they're trying to cross. Whereas like on Bitcoin Cash, like they just launched mint.bitcoin.com where anyone can create a token very, very easily. And there's actually some uses for those tokens. Now, it may not be perfect, but it's better than anything that exists on BSV. And I do think that the move to patent and be compliant, whatever that even means, slows everything down tremendously.
I'm just going to claim numpty victory for this one because we've hammered on this in several conversations. Like, forget waiting for legality. We've even used Uber and Lyft specifically as examples. Get the momentum, go. When it's legally ambiguous, if you get a bunch of talent and energy and use cases, the law will decide if it's politically advantageous to adjust to you. Just move. And Josh's article was like exactly that. I'm going to claim that the numpties have brought this spirit to BSV. And this is a great.
The thing is, no one here is saying like go out and completely break the law, right? I mean, because I would love to be able to advocate that sometimes, but sometimes it's just stupid and it's not going to work. On the other hand, like there's a lot of just legal gray areas, and if you're pausing in the legal gray areas and running around waiting for some bureaucrat to give you some form, like that's
nobody
stupid.
knows these things. Vitalik's been doing it since 2014 and doing nothing but gaining momentum so far. Yeah. So like, if all of a sudden the law comes in and says stop, okay, well then you can stop, or you can try to avoid it or adjust to it or work with it or whatever. But like, why wait? Why wait for the government to be the you're going to be waiting forever. They're so slow.
And when you're big, you can fight them a little bit more. Like if you have a large user base, so here's TikTok is pretty stupid in my opinion, but the government's trying to ban them right now. Well, one of the things that is going to protect them, in my opinion, is their massive user base of people using it. Like that's going to be a big hurdle. Even if they have legal justification to do it, it's going to be very hard to actually kill them. So they may adapt by selling part of that business to another company. They may do something, but the fact that they grew very fast is a powerful check against regulatory capture.
Wait, Derek, are you saying scale or die, or are you saying law is law? Because those sound like they're maybe in conflict.
Scale or die.
Yes.
There's a good South Park episode where Puff Daddy, is that Puff Daddy is singing Vote or Die, and it's like scale or die.
TK, Derek, don't pretend like you don't know the hip hop scene. I know the research you've done.
I don't listen to hip hop. Yeah, no, I think I grew up watching more black movies than TK did. Every time I'm always telling him,
shots fired.
It's true. You haven't even seen Major Payne yet, have you?
Wait, why is that a black movie? Because it has one black guy in it?
No.
Wayans Brothers.
We've actually, Wayans Brothers, starring any Wayans Brothers.
TK defined it for me.
Oh, okay.
Martin Lawrence. Yeah, I actually laid out a criteria.
And you never saw Black Knight, did you?
I never saw Black Knight.
Dude.
Hey, if you
but you were supposed to wait on me for Black Knight, dude. You were supposed to wait on me.
No, I saw that like Derek's 10 times when I was a kid. I used to watch that movie all the time.
Moment. This is Derek's Joe Biden moment. If you haven't seen Major Payne, you ain't black.
Oh God. Crap. Don't cancel me, guys. I'm sorry.
Hey, but I have seen every episode of the Wayans Brothers TV show and the Jamie Foxx show. That's hard to compete with.
Well, so going back to the idea of the legal gray areas, I wonder if this is where onboarding could be improved, or like maybe there's some regulation where AML KYC doesn't apply under a certain amount. Because I'm thinking about a platform like Streamanity. So let's say you've got a content creator who has a following. People want to see their content for 50 cents or a dollar. And you just have right there, top up your account, and you punch in your credit card information, and your account on Streamanity gets topped up $10 max, $10 at a time. Okay, that might be really successful in bringing people on. They might think they're just getting Streamanity credits, but they're actually buying BSV. Is that something where, is that a legal gray area? Because I feel like that would be
you could literally do a, hey, Streamanity is a $10 a month subscription, but what you get for that is your Streamanity, your coins, your tokens that are purchasable, which is what Audible does. You pay a subscription and you have tokens that you can use to buy. But those points are actually BSV on the back
wonder
end.
if you could cheese it like that.
If you have a token like built on top of BSV too, maybe that would be a way to do it, where it's like the token's actually transferring real BSV, but the thing that you're receiving is like a token.
Yeah, like a meaningless SLP token where, technically you're buying an SLP token, but it doesn't matter because you can just send it anywhere and it's still denominated in BSV. That's an interesting idea.
Man, I'm terrified though about the future where someone posted the other day that like Money Button will eventually have to KYC. And like, oh God, like
aren't they already doing that?
Are they?
I thought they just they just released a thing where you could buy BSV through Money Button.
Buying it, yeah. But I think they were talking about
he means just for setting up a wallet.
Yeah, for setting up a wallet, and like that kind of stuff, like would just be stifling.
That would kill it. That's the whole excitement about once you're in, getting in is the hard part because you got to get through the regs. Once you're in the BSV economy, everything is just like this. It's
so
peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer. It's on the white paper.
I don't know though if they'd have to go the regulatory route though, because the brilliance
sorry.
It's non-custodial, so they're not actually holding any of your money or your funds. It's just a clever way where it's like setting up they're having you set up a wallet for yourself. So hopefully that will help them avoid the regulations.
Yeah, if you're watching this and you're building something on BSV, or you're just like a Craig Wright cultist, like look, KYC is almost always just terrible for adoption. I mean, it just is. If you ever run a business and you've dealt with like the KYC government criminals who come in and like enforce these rules on you, it's hell. It's absolutely hell to deal with. And so
it's the absurdity of it. So many of these banking regs came up after 9/11 as like, it's anti-terrorist. I mean, I remember with Praxis, we could not get a bank account until we had on the homepage, it had to have a business address that was the same as the address we gave them. Well, I didn't have an office, so I did business out of my house. So I wanted all taxed, all the legal stuff.
You don't want to list your house.
I don't want to put my home address on the homepage, but they said we put a PO box on the homepage, and they said, nope, the address you said the business is registered with has to be the same as the one on the website. So we make sure you're not a money laundering front. They made me put my home so instead I just went and changed the business address to another business's address and borrowed their mailbox and had to go check my mail. It was like, and it took forever. I had to go back and forth between different states, re-register. These are just absurd, insane. It's bureaucracy. This is what these laws are. They harm for going after some percentage of criminals or money launderers who probably have already found a way around it. They harm 99% of people just trying to do business. So
and the irony is that they lead to more identity theft because they're huge security holes, which is, the whole hilariously comical situation and tragic where the MetaNet Slack was trying to KYC people and didn't do it properly and lost all their IDs and had them like embedded into the blockchain. I mean, it's tragic, but it's just a great reminder.
Okay, so I got a question for you guys before we get near to the end here. TK, you asked about Josh's article about, hey, like, why is BSV taking so long for tokenization? Is this a valid criticism? And I think we all think it is, and I think we all kind of expressed that. But I'm curious, like, I loved his article, and I totally agree with the critique. But I don't know enough about all these DeFi projects and even most of the tokenization use cases I've heard to know whether or not those are actually really that valuable or useful. I can imagine some that I think could be, but like, is it like, oh my God, why don't we have DeFi, right? DeFi is truly a provably amazing thing, or these tokens have genuine, real value creating use cases, or are they all just in the future, it could be cool, so let's speculate on it so far? Like, what's the best current version of something really valuable being done on tokens.
So I don't think DeFi is that useful, but I wish I could tell you the company I was talking to the other day. I can't though.
So mysterious.
But it's like, so you can imagine though, like, you can imagine one of the cool things about tokens is that it allows a company that wants to have some kind of native token on a platform to have it in such a way that it can actually be traded off the platform to other people. And so there's a value there for customers. So like an airline, for example, could have their point system built on top of SLP. And the reason that could be kind of cool is because then you've got an actual market for people to be able to trade their airline points. And airline points could be more valuable to a customer now because they're not just redeemable on that platform, right? So I can earn my, or with credit cards is the same thing, right? Or with a merchant, like if I'm buying something with, like one of the things I've kept telling the Bitcoin.com wallet guys to do with their cash register app is to issue an SLP token when customers, or to have merchants be able to give a SLP reward token. And the reason that's cool is because you want that token more if I know that I don't just have to use it at that store. I can give it to someone else who wants to use it at that store in exchange for something else. And so I think that's one really awesome potential use case. But there's other people doing some really cool stuff that hopefully will get announced soon on Bitcoin Cash.
For me, I don't really know much about this area, but I do want to share a Brendan Lee quote that I thought was at least funny. There's a conversation he did with Daniel Krawitz, and they asked him about DeFi, and he said DeFi is a way for people who don't understand blockchain to make a lot of money off of people who don't understand finance by selling them a bunch of useless tokens. I thought that was funny at the very least, and at least deserves to be quoted. But this is one of those areas that I would have to go beyond my knowledge and pretend to know stuff that I don't really understand yet to really talk about it. I'm intrigued. I suspect that some of the talk around it comes from a sense of envy, you know, because right now everybody's talking about DeFi. You see Ethereum number go up and everyone's getting excited, and that tends to make people anxious about where they are. Like, oh, we're moving too slowly. But I can't say if all of it is due to that. Maybe there's some value there. I don't know.
Tokens can be used for like tracking assets on the blockchain too. I mean, I think that some of those like Unisat aren't they going to be supposedly using a token specifically to track, to tokenize, you know, I don't know, fish or something like that. Like
there was a gold one too, right? Wasn't there some announcement some time ago about tokenizing gold on BSV? That was like a big thing. Y'all remember that?
I'm sure there was an announcement there's been announcements about everything. Sorry, that was undignified, Calvin.
We love you, Calvin.
It reminds me of when altcoins really came on the market. And I don't claim to be like a DeFi expert at all, but in my limited research, it just seems unnecessary. I mean, there's undoubtedly value in tokens. I don't know if that even qualifies as DeFi, and I mean, Bitcoin can do tokens no problem, but I just haven't seen. I remember in the ICO boom, everybody was releasing their ICO, and you look into it, and it's like you would be hard pressed to find a single one of these ICOs that had some unique value proposition more than just being another token. So
yeah, I mean, I wonder about like DeFi. I mean, some version of it being able to give people who don't have access to investments to be able to invest. Like that's interesting kind of, but my concern about that is that that's sort of like extra legal. And then when it's extra legal too, now you have no way of making sure that the contract is honored once you participate in it. It seems that you're actually.
Well, I think it's kind of like privacy coins in that it's a real, that is a real use case that Bitcoin doesn't do as well. I just don't, I don't think it justifies a lot of the hype around it. I'm sure like decentralized exchanges with the clever smart contracts, that's cool stuff. That's, that could be really, really valuable for a small group of people, but I don't think that's
a decentralized exchange is really cool just because we have many notable cases of exchanges like losing people's money and stuff.
Yeah.
So
there's some interesting things there. And again, with the decentralized exchange, the question is how do you onboard into that? Because if you're using fiat to get onto the decentralized exchange, they're going to be like, we're stopping your credit card. You're committing a crime by swiping your debit card. So like, there's a ways to sort of like, I think a lot of this is panacea. They seem to assume that there's no way for the government to shut these things down, or to at least make them really annoying to use.
But like to Josh's point, that's what I love, and that's what I wish there was more of on BSV. It's like, I'm not going to ask the government question. Why would I start with, what might they do to me in the future to shut this down? Okay, if it gets to that, fine. Let's experiment. Let's launch it. Let's try. And if they come to me and say, hey, you can't do that, I'll be like, oh, sorry, I didn't know. And then
my philosophy about BSV is that people should literally do whatever they want, like without dicking around with the protocol. Try anything. I don't care. I may not want to touch it, but like they should do it. You know, I told Jack the other day, again, Jack, I was like, I'm going to do, because he had tweeted about something about similar, and I just responded, I'm going to do whatever I want with my BSV, and people who don't like it can stiff, you know? And that's kind of how I feel. Like, you should want a culture of people trying to build things, and that includes people who may be skirting the boundaries of the law. You don't need to do that if you don't want to participate in that.
Well, this reminds me of when we had Elon Moist on the show, to name somebody else, because we got to name somebody else besides Jack today. But y'all are asking him about Craig and the whole idea of, hey, you're not afraid of this guy doing something in a few years that just blows everything up? And I thought his response to that expressed these sentiments of like, okay, look, I don't have an answer for every hypothetical question about something that he could do that could stop me in the future from doing this, but it works right now. And so let's try to experiment right now, and let's try to blow this thing up before anybody blows the network up. And I think that's the kind of innovation that we're talking about. And what's cool about BSV right now, the BSV culture has two streams. You've got the stream that is leading with the legality rhetoric, and then you've got a stream that's critical of that. I mean, I know Josh is being polemic. I mean, I know Jack is being polemic sometimes, but you know, he's now like creating a new meme of I'll fix this, right? Like Jack is leading the shift from Bitcoin will fix this to I will fix this. And I think a part of what he's doing is trying to promote this culture of saying, hey, look, we don't have time to be sitting around hoping that InChain and CoinGeek and Craig's lawsuits are gonna unfold in some kind of way that's gonna make number go up. If we, the entrepreneurs, don't get on the ground and start doing creative stuff, it ain't happening. Even if that's not true, you got to live as if that is true. And so it's going to be interesting to see this competition and whose point is proving. That's the best thing about Bitcoin. It's not a religion. It's a scientific experiment, man. And we're going to see who wins in the realm of empirical data. Take that for data.
Why don't we let you talk more? That was great.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Well, we need sound effects. We need sound effects. So like I can hit like a laugh button or like an applause button.
I wanna have somebody split up. TK saying Bitcoin is not a religion, with him saying Craig is the mother of Bitcoin, and all the other religious sounding things. I wanted to say though, the longer that this goes on of the kind of gray area innovation, the more likely it is to be legal. Ethereum is a great example here, where, like I remember in the ICO boom, having people connected in this industry. My brother was working for a company that said, "Oh, we're going to raise a token." It's like, "Oh, is this something we really want to get involved in?" But the investors were saying, "Got to have a token now." There's a whole bunch of concern over ICOs. And the more time goes on, the more it looks like, hey, maybe maybe people aren't going to be seriously punished for this. It would seem weird to say, it seemed weird to lock up Vitalik when this has been going on since 2014, you know, or
what
whenever.
Governments want is leverage to get more of what they want. And if they see a large, motivated, moneyed constituency around something, they will threaten it to see how much money they can extort out of it in order to make laws that don't make it go away. They'll say, "Oh, I think we're going to ban you." And then we'll wait a while and they'll see how much are these people willing to pay to play ball. And if it's like, "Oh, there's a big constituency where either I'll suffer politically if I harm them, or I'll gain politically if I help them, or they'll pay me enough money." Like I remember when I used to work in the state legislature, AT&T had funded this big lobbying effort to get them to change some law that would let them compete in the broadband network where they previously couldn't. And Verizon hated it, or Comcast hated it. So it was AT&T versus Comcast. And the lawmakers, all votes had already been purchased. Everybody knew who AT&T had bought, who Comcast had bought, and the vote, it was going to pass and AT&T was going to win. But Comcast didn't know this and AT&T didn't know this. The lawmakers did. So they kept testimony going for like 6 months, and they just kept dragging it out and kept introducing amendments and changes, because the longer they did, the longer these guys would pay them money. It wasn't really a threat. It was already going to go through. Like, right? So if you see this is a community that's useless, but it could be a threat to me, I'll just kill it. Oh, this is a community that could be a threat to me, but if I kill it, that could harm me politically. Or if I work with it, just threaten to kill it, they might come and pay me a bunch of money or give me a bunch of work with me and help me in ways, and then I'll make it legal. So it's kind of like, again, they're going to do what they can get away with. The way you decrease their ability to shut you down is by being something that is politically harmful to shut down, you know? And you get there by getting a lot of people on board.
I like the people who want to ask, like, you're not worried about Craig doing X. It's like, well, I mean, that's a theoretical thing in the future. But what I do know now is that BTC was turned against its original value proposition. Bitcoin Cash has been co-opted by a maniacal French guy. And like we know things have actually, we have evidence in front of us, you know, like when the Bitcoin Cash person's like, you're not worried about Craig doing X. I'm like, well, I'm more worried about what these guys did do on Bitcoin Cash. Like, and they're doing to you right now and laughing all the way to the bank. And all the things that you guys said Craig was going to do are basically being done by Bitcoin ABC. Like truly down to the letter almost are being done by Bitcoin ABC. It's hysterical. You still want to ask me if I'm worried about Craig.
I don't know how that had escaped me until now. I didn't realize how absurd that critique now is from BCH of like, because like it's a valid thing to be like, Craig's kind of a, like,
it is a valid concern.
He's a liability. But to say, sitting in the BCH camp right now to be like, aren't you worried about Craig? Well, your guy is burning the whole thing to the ground.
Yeah, he's holding you all hostage and playing a game of chicken with the whole community.
If the IFP was on BSV, I think people would say that was the game plan all along.
Oh, that's a great one.
You know,
you got to treat that.
Craig and Calvin, that they're how are they going to get money out of their little venture? Well, by doing something like the IFP.
We told you it was a scam. They're going to suck all this blood. Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to tweet it and say that I came up with it while you were high.
Yeah, say that. You say you came up with that, and then I'll say I came up with the onboarding idea.
And I'll see you guys in 5 years.
When the feds come after you for money laundering, Isaac, I'm going to tell them that you came up with it.
We're going to use this idea. We're going to use this in court as evidence. I'm going to be like, Derek was just a loser alcoholic, guys. He would.
I actually, during this call, I've drank about a quarter of a Yingling.
That's a lot for you. I'm a little concerned.
Well, yeah, because normally I'm not like a quarter of a quarter. So
if you drink a half a beer, you'll be wearing a Benjamin Franklin outfit.
I won like this like $300 bottle of whiskey for this contest, and I brought it over. I gave it to you. I brought it over to Isaac's place.
I forgot. I was about to say, why didn't you give it to me? Yes. Oh, TK, what else do you want to talk about, buddy?
I got to go in a few minutes, man. So I'll give kind of like a simple sort of question. I don't know if it's actually simple, but since y'all were talking about the whole idea of killing something and the politics of that, one thing that we've heard said about BSV for so long is that this is a network that could easily be 51% attacked. This could be easily killed. And, you know, some things have been tried, like the delisting and so forth. Why doesn't anybody just squash BSV? If nobody outside of BSV respects it, they all see it as the scam coin. They all want to get back at Craig Wright. They're all so angry at him. Why don't they just try to get together? Why haven't they tried to get together to just squash BSV?
Well, I mean, I think one thing, this is only maybe the beginning of an answer, but a lot of people point to like current hash rate and they're like, oh, therefore it can be easily 51% attacked. But reality is like a miner doesn't want to use more hash at any moment than they need to. So there is more hash in reserve that could be used for the BSV network if it were necessary to use on the BSV network.
So that's one of the things. And nobody knows necessarily how much that is. So you can't predict the cost of attack ahead of time, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that's like, so there's one of the things the core guys would always do this with Bitcoin Cash, like, look at the hash rate, look at the hash rate. And it's like, okay, but like the existing hashes, that's just, that doesn't necessarily tell you exactly what it's going to cost to attack it. Like that's like a theoretical thing. But once you do an attack, you have to see who else is going to be participating in the mining at that point. And you don't know what's going to happen with that.
I'm going to take the cultural explanation that most of the world's hash is still in China, and the Chinese miners are passive, and they don't do stuff like that. I thought we were going to see an attack on BCH a long time ago, especially for a while there. The ratios were really, really bad. It didn't seem like it would take much hash rate to screw over BCH, but it never happened. And I think it's has some relation to the orderliness or pacificity or something of the miners.
Yeah, I don't have a better answer. I mean, there can be conspiratorial that they secretly want BSV to win.
That
and
was
they
interesting
also,
though. Yeah.
Or it's not worth attacking.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting to see on the subject of miners how many have switched over to BSV. Because I last I checked, I haven't checked in probably a couple of weeks.
Well, not switched over, but added
they're mining
BSV,
on it, like Binance was mining on it.
Added it to the mix of the multi things that they mine. Yeah.
Yeah, there were big. Binance was one. Huobi was another. There was another big one. It was like
Binance was big because they really spoke heavily against Craig, and
Right.
they delisted BSV early on and made a big deal about it, and then they're mining it still.
I think that's a very strong sign. And it looked like the hash rate was actually pretty well distributed too. Like Craig and last I checked, Tal and Craig and Calvin, they were a minority, which is really, really interesting to see. And that also, for me, helps me quell concerns about the Craig Wright takeover a little bit,
Huge.
or the burning the whole thing down because he's erratic. Well, if he's no longer majority hash rate, and if the people who have majority hash rate don't even like him, that is a curtailing of his power.
That's been funny from the beginning, but it's even funnier now that they're almost the same. BCH definitely, and even BTC people who are like, good luck with your centralized shitcoin. And it's like literally the same 12 miners in the case of BCH and BSV mine both chains, and BTC has maybe another 5 or 8 or something. They have like, it's like the same people mine they're all the same amount of centralized. There's like,
well, yeah, and on
same number of
BTC they're
nodes.
all running core. Like they're not, like, for the most part they're all using the same software with a handful of devs who are updating it. You know, but
All
they're
right.
saying the same thing about Craig.
TK, you got to leave us in like 2 minutes here, so you get the last word, man.
I get the last word.
Yeah, you get the last word. This is all about you today. I want to show the world that we care for you, given everything that's going on.
Oh,
There's this funny.
I didn't sign up for that.
I met with the court. I met with the court case. Jeez, I just know it emotionally impacts TK.
There's this funny and inspiring YouTube clip that you got to watch, and it's Denzel Washington on a panel discussion. I don't even know what the event was. I think it was like a bunch of young actors kind of type of thing. And the name of the video is The Nigga That They Couldn't Kill. And Denzel tells a story about how he first started out in his acting career. There was some project, whatever, where they offered him a role. And he said he basically just played like this stereotypical black dude. And they tried to kill him several times and they couldn't kill him. Somebody shoots him, somebody hits him with a car, all these different types of things. And that was Denzel's phrase to describe the character. He says, I called this character the nigga they couldn't kill. And he says, like, he struggled if he wanted to accept this character, if he wanted to play the role, and he called Sidney Poitier. And Sidney Poitier said, well, hey man, the first movie that you make, that's going to be the one that kind of sets the tone, and that's how people are going to see you for the rest of your career. And so Denzel said he decided to turn that movie down, and after that, he ended up getting like a different offer. So it was kind of like this inspiring message about, having high standards, whatever. But it's funny to hear him describe all the different ways that they tried to kill this dude. And he says, that's the name of the character. That's the name that I gave to the character, the nigga they couldn't kill. So I would say that's BSV. BSV is the nigga that they couldn't kill. They've tried everything from the delisting. They've tried, making Craig look bad. And that's the T-shirt that I want. I want a T-shirt.
And
That's,
Craig
I
has
mean,
made himself look
Craig,
bad.
Craig has tried making himself look bad even. Yeah.
Yeah, despite Craig's best efforts, BSB is somehow still around.
yeah. So that's the T-shirt that I need for BSB. BSB, the nigga that they couldn't kill.
Man.
Because Denzel's description of that character is so perfect for BSB. They've tried everything, and if they could kill it, I think they would have done it.
None of us can tweet that now, unfortunately. It's
Well,
so
well,
good.
you got to make sure you don't have the ER at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Then it just sounds
That-
Not the ER, man. It's the
I don't know if I don't know if we're allowed to do that either anymore. I think
No,
that's-
y'all can't do that, man. Y'all let me handle that.
Okay, we got. Thank you, TK. You've relieved us of the burden of promoting that great phrase. Hey, man, this is a lot of fun. I appreciate it. I didn't know if we'd have anything to talk about today, but turns out we had a lot of stuff to talk about. I feel like we could keep going, but don't worry, we won't. TK's gonna leave us. So,
Yeah.
gentlemen,
All right.
later.
See you guys.
See you guys.